Welcome to episode 807 of Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I am sharing experiences, true paranormal stories from the web. As always, you can find all episodes of the show, along with links to social media and ways to support the show at the website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. As far as supporting the show goes, there are some different ways to do that, including Patreon and the merchandise store. Support is never expected, but always appreciated, as there are expenses in making these shows. And please check out the links in every episode description for friends of the show. Be Jen, the Arcane Observer, and her own channel. And then also she is the co-host of this show on the weekends, as well as Michael Strange and the Trouble Minds Radio Show and the Trouble Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting. There you can hear replays of my show and many other amazing shows as well, 24/7. So let's get to these true stories here, and we'll get going with that. Thank you all for being here and listening in. And so let's see. So yeah, let's get to this here. Let's scroll down a little ways. It's funny how some of these accounts bring up other accounts that I've shared before on shows, even though normally I can never just do that manually. It has to be triggered by another thought or memory. So it's weird how that works. But okay. Let's see. This is a longer one apparently. Okay. This one says, I work in a doctor's office located next to a nearly century-old hospital. My building is only 10 years old and houses unaffiliated, that was a hard word to read, medical specialists. The emergency room behind the office is even older than the hospital itself. I expect the hospital and emergency area to be haunted due to their long history, but I hadn't experienced or expected, to experience paranormal activity in the newer office building, which is at least 50 feet away from the hospital. 6 months ago, in the early morning, I heard the lobby doorknob rattle loudly several times before any patients arrived. When I checked, no one was there, and the hallway offered nowhere to hide. While recounting the door incident to coworkers, an appointment card inexplicably lifted from its holder, flipped in the air, and landed on the desk in front of us. This never happened again. I began hearing voices mumbling in the stairwell, but when I checked, no one was there. I also heard footsteps in the empty stairwell. Coworkers reported hearing these as well. A coworker witnessed the lobby television turning on by itself, flipping through channels, and then turning off. The remote was stored away, and the TV was too old to be controlled by an app. This happened when the office was empty during lunch. Office chairs have been seen rolling at their stations without explanation, and the coffee table in the lobby has been moved, with the sound of it shifting being heard by staff on 2 occasions. The most frightening incident happened one stormy evening when I took the stairs at the far end of the hallway, leaving for the day, which was filled with storms. I heard rapid footsteps behind me, which stopped abruptly when I looked back, despite being alone. As I hurried down the stairs, the door on the 3rd landing banged open and shut violently. After pausing in fear and then continuing, the third floor door crashed open again as I reached the first landing, accompanied by what might have been footsteps. I ran out of the building, frightened, and I am still frightened, as I have to go back early tomorrow morning, especially with more storms expected, and the prospect of being alone and having to use the stairs again. That's where that one ends. That just sounds like an active location. I would be curious to know what was there before that that building was there. Was there other medical facilities there? I don't know, but yes, in the chat there, Dawn says hospitals are crazy. I can't imagine how much worse it is even when you're in a place like that and you're alone. That's and all that energy. Because yeah, I'm not surprised that there was that much activity, and I could imagine it sort of spilling out into other places around the hospital, even if these places aren't directly physically connected. I could imagine that this happening. I mean, obviously, I don't know for sure, but yeah, that sounds like a lot going on there. The appointment card thing, that I've heard of accounts where people are talking about these things happening, and then while they're talking about what has happened before, something else happens. And so that thing with the appointment card coming out of the case and then flipping in the air and then landing, that is wild, but also I can imagine that pretty easily happening. It does seem like there is one or more intelligences there, beings there, possibly. Not to say that there can't be things that happen because of the energy of the people that are there, the living people that are there as well. But I can imagine all those things mixing together to just create all kinds of activity. I've only been inside hospitals a couple of times, but I noticed in the hallways and in some of the smaller like the regular rooms, and I always bring this up because it's true and it felt really odd. They always felt like they were packed with just wall to wall people, even when there were not that many people there physically. But I always got that feeling in these places, like we were just whoever I was with, we were just moving through crowds of people. And it wasn't just an energy feeling. It wasn't just a feeling of energy, of waves of energy. I've had that before where places feel like they have a lot of energy. There is a difference there, I think, based on what I've experienced before. There's a difference between feeling energy, feeling sort of the age of a place, but also feeling, like I said, in hospitals, like the whole place is just full of people. So yeah, I'm not surprised that all that happened there as well. So so it's really wild, but there's just so many. I could probably do a whole podcast on the side, weekly maybe even, of accounts of experiences from medical facilities. I think that could be a whole other show. If I wanted to do that, if I wanted to go that route. I don't, because I like to focus on just everything that's out there, but I think it could definitely be done fairly easily, without much effort to do that. So, but moving on to the next one here. And hello to everyone there in the chat. Thank you for being here. And let me see here what the next one is. This one says, I consider this to be my best ghost story because it has two witnesses. Whenever I share it with others, I have my friend there with me, even if he's just on speakerphone. to confirm the story. The haunting involved my friend's house, not my own. I met him through our parents and quickly became close, but noticed that he never wanted me to sleep over at his house, but he was fine staying at mine. During a visit, I brought over a horror video game to play, but my friend recoiled, revealing his house was haunted, and he was uncomfortable uncomfortable with scary things there. His father did not believe in the haunting and was reluctant to move due to a rent to own arrangement. My friend lived in a basement mother-in-law unit, which was a full living space beneath the main house. He described seeing something like a cloud pass by the pantry door's window in the basement. We tried to provoke the entity by shouting at it. Also, just note from the podcaster here, never a good idea. I yelled, "Show yourself," and my friend yelled, "Hey." Immediately after, we saw something white and bright move rapidly across the pantry door window, which was the only window in the pitch black pantry. We were so frightened, we ran upstairs. I lost a sandal and had to grab it with my eyes closed while escaping. After reaching the upstairs, we heard a loud slam from downstairs, which caused us to flee outside. We told my friend's father what happened, emphasizing that we had both seen the same thing. My friend's family moved out a few months later, and his personality changed after the experience. And that's where that one ends. A lot to unpack there, in a way. It sounds like the place was active beforehand, just from the friend and their family there. But then, yeah, I understand if you don't have any experience of these things, you haven't looked into them at all, just thinking that you're joking around by maybe provoking or just trying to talk to whoever's there or whatever's there, or provoking, being intentionally, not that they were being terribly mean, but also they were still provoking in a way. And I can understand wanting to do that to get evidence of things happening, but also that's how things can happen more. And so I would definitely never recommend doing that. And I almost went into a whole rant about paranormal reality shows and how they do that on there sometimes or often. But anyway, that's a whole other. I can't remember if I did a show on that or not, but I may have to do one on that at some point. But and I do wonder, did things pick up in the house after that event? Is that why the family moved out? I don't know, and the writer doesn't say there. Maybe they don't know for sure. But it doesn't surprise me that there was things happening there, and that they happened. It is amazing that it happened when they sort of tried talking to it or yelling at it. That doesn't always happen either. But yeah, sounds like an active place. But I mean, I do wonder what else was experienced there. Was it really negative, or was it just the fear of the unknown, the fear of not knowing how or why these things are happening that made it so frightening? I can understand that as well. And then when they wanted to show their friend, the writer there, what was going on, that just sort of making things worse, even though that's not what they meant to do. So, yeah, I think that's all I have on that one. Other than just like I said, I would always advise against any kind of um, disrespectful talking or thoughts toward whoever or whatever might be around you. And I mean, like, obviously that should go for other beings out there, other entities out there, as well as people around you that are living, that are here in the physical sense right now as well. Uh, so yeah, that's where we'll leave that for now. But moving on to the next one here. Let's see. This one says, this happened around 2006, shortly after my grandfather had passed away. I was in the den using the computer while my parents and older sister watched a movie on VHS. Suddenly, the VHS player stopped the movie and turned off, and the TV began changing channels by itself. The entire family witnessed the TV changing channels. My sister initially suspected our dad was playing a joke, but he denied it. After a few minutes of the TV acting on its own, our dad jokingly suggested, maybe it's Grandpa trying to find his favorite shows. My sister loudly asked, Grandpa, please stop. I'm trying to watch a movie. Immediately, the TV returned to Channel 3. The VHS player turned on, and the movie resumed playing. This isn't the wildest paranormal experience my family has had, but it ranks among the top 5. And that's where that one ends. And of course, that's the sad thing with these posts is whenever they say stuff like that, my first thought is, well, go on. Tell us about the other ones. But that is really wild. For that not to even be the wildest experience that they had, that's pretty amazing. I do wonder. I've heard that remotes can cause other people's devices to turn on and off and change channels and things, but does that work with the VCR as well as the TV? I don't know. But even then, the timing of it is also amazing, where it was like there was a response. It was almost like the grandpa reacted to their granddaughter asking them to stop and to put the movie back on because she was watching a movie. So the timing there is always fascinating with these things. I think it's one thing when things happen randomly and there doesn't seem to be any direct interaction. In other words, if just TV channels randomly change in someone's home and then they change back or whatever, or they stop, I can imagine that being a case of remotes from different locations having their signals get to get further than you want, and having effects on someone's remote, having effects on someone else's devices. But when you have that timing like that, to me, that's always amazing. So let's get one more story in here before we have to stop for this episode, and go from there. This one says, when I was about 7 years old, I stayed the night at my uncle's house, upstairs. My uncle's oldest daughter, my cousin, called me into her room from the hallway. As I reached the doorframe, I saw a huge, almost crimson red, furry or fuzzy presence through the crack of the fully opened door. The door opened toward the room, making it illogical for something so large and husky to be behind it. Yet the presence appeared massive. The texture of the entity's fur reminded me of an animated kids movie featuring monsters. The presence had no visible eyes, but I felt it was looking down at me. I immediately began crying, which caused my cousin to panic and check behind the door, finding nothing there. Was it a hallucination? I don't think so, as it was so vivid and has stuck in my mind since then. I'm 22 now, and I still think about the experience and wonder if anyone else has seen a similar entity. I don't think a ghost would appear as this thing did. So, was it a demon or something else? And that's where that one ends. That one is odd. I can imagine. I've been saying that word a lot tonight. I've heard of accounts of people seeing creatures, animal-like beings, but also the idea of it being almost like something you would see in a cartoon is fascinating to me, because I've heard of accounts of that before. People seeing what look like cartoon characters, sometimes even characters they recognize. And I can't think of any now to give examples specifically, but people seeing cartoon, and even to where it looks like a cartoon image in the real world. So the colors, the shape, everything. Also the dimensions. If you think about a cartoon figure, it's two-dimensional. So that wouldn't be that hard for something that maybe that can manipulate or has very little thickness to it to be behind a door like that. Think of almost like shadow figures, but it's not a shadow, it's something different. So I don't know what the person saw there. I'd be curious about any other events in the house. To me, whether it's a one-off event that happened in the location or it's several events, either way, those two are both. I always wonder why. How does that work? Why do multiple things happen in the same location, while in other locations, only one thing happens to one person ever, as far as they know? And of course, I have no answers for that, but there are plenty of accounts of that as well, where people just have this one sighting of something that they can't explain in their home or in another building, but there's nothing else that they are aware of ever before or after that in that location. So then are there cases where ghosts or spirits or creatures or whatever other entities out there, aliens, whatever, any intelligence, are there cases where there are just some that pass through, and sometimes they're noticed when they're passing through areas? I could understand that. I could believe that happening. I've found so many accounts where people say this is the only thing that ever happened in this one location that we know of. So it's a thing to think about, and I do often, as you can probably tell here. But that's it for this episode. Thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.